Hi folks, welcome back to the Amazing Education Station, the Amazing Education channel. Welcome back. Thanks for listening. It's not about watching, it's about the information. So in case you wonder why the video is not that interesting, well, because it's to be listened to and it's information that's going to benefit you to have a healthy, peaceful world, positive future, much less dangerous, and have less disease, less overpopulation, cleaner, reduce pollution. So I talk about electric cars, hybrid cars, and finances, although it's not financial advice, but I'm required to say it's for financial education only, and I'm not a financial advisor. So anyway, but everybody needs things to survive. And talking about survival, today's video is about the situation with China. We have a major surge with lockdowns in China, and people say a new variant. It's one, maybe sort of a branch off of the Omicron variant, which seems to spread easier. Yes, even easier than before. Can you believe it? Hopefully it's less deadly, but if it's easier to spread, then more people, even if it's individually less deadly for that person, individual that would get it, but with many, many more people becoming ill, then we would have more hospitalizations and clearly probably more deaths unless they improve the treatment so that then deaths could be reduced, which in the long run it might happen, but right now it doesn't look like it. But could there be a positive aspect to it? Well, because China is going through this right now, and there is hope from a certain country in northern Asia or northern Europe that is attacking and killing. People say it's sort of a war crime situation going on right now, and China is being sort of expected that they might support this the war in Ukraine. And however, if they're going through economic troubles caused by COVID, they may hesitate and be worried about the economy instead of trying to help some kind of war that is killing innocent people. And yes, I mean, people could argue that NATO, by not paying attention to the needs of Northern Asia and further encroaching and putting nuclear weapons in more and more countries, that NATO is the actual threat. And when you look at history, now I'm not saying I agree with this, okay? I didn't say that NATO is the actual threat, but some people, you could look at it that way. And in history, who has started world wars? Well, guess what? It was the Western Europeans. That's who has caused the trouble. And so why would any other group want the expansion of NATO and the Western Europeans? Now, you might say, well, NATO, that's America, it's North American Treaty Organization. Well, okay, it may have been organized by North America. It may have positive world good at heart. But it could change, just like our leadership can change. And you can have elected leaders that take over and have basically thugs, and that's what happened to Germany. If you don't think their leadership was elected, well, think again and look into it. You can have terrible wars started by elected officials, and although some tyrants, they tend to stay in office, so if they change laws, change constitutions to stay in office, that's a big sign that, they're getting rid of term limitations, and they could have power-hungry ideas and not really care about the good of human beings and care more about strength and size of economies and so on. And as we know, just looking right here, this is not natural. We don't have the natural plants and animals that are normally here. We've destroyed this environment right here. We've paved it over, filled it with polluting vehicles. Some of them are hybrid. We have a few electric vehicles, but still, it's not a natural area, and we've vastly overpopulated this. Instead of just a few birds and a few trees, it could have been a beautiful natural area with growing plants and food and, and people enjoying nature. And but it's not like that anymore. So we've vastly overpopulated and caused all sorts of trouble simply because our family sizes are too large, people having too many children, and we're at a point now where it's obvious we can't do this anymore. So people are suffering and finally reducing their family sizes. So that's a positive thing, but we need to continue that for decades and decades until we're back to a reasonable level and we make half of the arable land, which is sort of the land that could grow plants and have animals in it, turn it back to nature instead of having all agriculture and housing and concrete. And we can allow evolution to continue much better, in a much better way, when we have half of the planet land area natural space. Maybe every other mile, just have a nice crisscross of natural space, and limit our overpopulation and our destruction of the environment and the pollution that's causing us our modern diseases, and reducing our quality of living, and also the length of our lives is also reducing now, unfortunately, because we're sitting around driving and polluting. Plenty of chemicals and plastics and oil. It's causing great trouble, and also it can be seen as a result of people who are just power hungry and wealth hungry, creating empires just for the desire to look powerful and to beat an enemy, when we should be thinking more along the lines of being neighborly and all the benefits that would accrue, the many good things that would happen if we had a neighborhood of countries all around the planet that got along and were more cooperative, instead of considering how they could take each other's property over and how they could kill their neighbors. And you have to really worry about countries that frankly are just not happy. They don't have good philosophies. They drink a lot of alcohol or take other drugs, and their competition is through killing and guns. And it happens. And I'm not saying which countries. I think all countries have the risk, and certainly the United States has created an empire as well in some times by taking over lands, either with fighting or without fighting, through war or through other situations. And yes, many of those were defensive. There's no doubt about it. But take a look at Hawaii, or take a look at some other territories of the United States, and they weren't all taken peacefully for good reasons as a defensive situation. Some were taken and led to the creation of the American so-called empire. But on the other hand, we've also given some back, like the Philippines, and although we still have bases in Japan, but Japan is largely peaceful, independent country, and so you could say that more sober minds have done some positive actions that have helped countries around the world. But we need to do more, and when all the countries communicate together, then we can have a great reduction in militaries all around the world slowly over time, and just reduce and reduce and reduce to the point where we only need defensive forces and much less expensive, so people will be saving their money and have less stress, and it'll be much more enjoyable, and we can get out and enjoy nature and see the trees and the fish, and things will be much better. So as I was talking about China, so they would probably like to help take over Ukraine, but not everybody would like that. In many ways, China is a peaceful country.